Hi, I'm Ted Pattison. Welcome to the Office Developer Screencast virtual tour. In this video tutorial, we're going to talk about creating custom workflows with the Sharepoint Designer. The Sharepoint Designer allows a developer or a user to connect to a site in a production environment or in a staging or development environment, and to be able to create custom workflows and associate them with lists and document libraries. This effectively allows you to take business logic and associate it with items in your lists and documents in your document libraries. In this demonstration, I'm going to have a document library that has a custom metadata column. And when I create the workflow with a wizard provided by the Sharepoint Designer, you'll see that I will create logic to send an email message, but only conditionally when this metadata value has been assigned to a certain value. Inside the demonstration, we're also going to use workflows that are launched manually by the user. When you use these types of workflows, the workflow author has the opportunity to provide an initialization form that solicits input data from the user when the workflow is being initiated. And so we'll create an initialization variable, and then we'll show how to use the wizard to be able to take this initialization data inside your workflow, and in our case, we're going to take it and parse it into the body of an email message that we're going to send out to someone who is going to be responsible for reviewing the document. Okay, so I'm going to start by opening up a site. I have a very generic blank site that's at the root of my default website. And the first thing I want to do with this site is let's create a document library. So we'll create a new document library, and we'll call this document library Proposals. And the only thing that I'm going to do to this document library that's a little bit unique is that I want to go and add a column to it. So I'm going to go to Proposals, Settings, and I'm going to go down and add a new column. And in particularly, I want to add a column called Category that's going to be a choice. And when someone uploads a new proposal, we want that to fall into the category of sales or marketing or human resources, HR. So let's go ahead and finish off here. So now what we have is we have this document library, and our users can start uploading documents. But what we want to do is we want to use the Sharepoint Designer to go ahead and attach a workflow to this. So let's go ahead and launch the Microsoft Office Sharepoint Designer 2007. And it opens up the site right here. So now that I have the site open, when I want to create a new custom workflow with the Sharepoint Designer, I'm going to go to the New menu. And under the New menu, you see that workflow is one of the types of items that I can create. So I'm going to create this new workflow. Now when I create a new workflow, I can give it any name that I want. And so why don't we call this the Review Workflow. And then it's going to ask me what specific list or document library do I want to associate this workflow with. So I'm going to choose Proposals. And I can say allow this workflow to be manually started from an item. And I can also say automatically start it when the new document is created or changed. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make the user initiate the workflow so we can see the initiation form. Also, what we want to do is whenever a user kicks off the workflow, we want to ask them for some data. So I'm going to click on this initiation button down here, and this lets me add in variables that it's going to prompt the user to add in. And so let's say there might be some notes associated with that. And so we'll say enter notes, and we'll go ahead and make this multiple lines of text. When we do that, do we want a default value? Do we want to allow for blank values? We'll say both of those are going to be fine. And we'll allow for enhanced rich text as well. We'll go ahead and choose Finish. So now that we've added in some initialization data, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a step. So let's say when this workflow is launched, what we like to do is we like to send an email. So I want to send an email to Brian, who's in HR, but only under certain condition. So what we'll do is we'll look at a custom condition, And in particular, this custom condition will be that if category, so remember that's the custom metadata field I just added, if that's equal to a value of HR, that's the condition we want to trap. And then what I'd like to do is I'd like to send an email. So we'd like to send an email, and so I'm going to say Brian C. at litwareinc.com, and what is the subject? And we'll say review required. And then down here we'll say please review, and then I'm going to go down here and click add lookup to body. And so what we'll do is we'll come down here and say under the current item, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to find the name of that particular file that the workflow is being run on. So I'm just going to pick the name field inside here. Notice that when I choose OK, that it puts back the syntax it requires to take one of those variables and parse it into the text. And then we'll say in the proposals library. And then also we might want to put notes in place right here. And so this time I'm going to one more time say add lookup to body. And this time instead of information from the current item, it's because we asked the user to initialize data, we're going to pick a workflow data item. And if I drop that down, I see there's only one inside there. So we'll go ahead and choose notes. So now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and click OK. So now I've created a step. Now if I wanted to, I could create additional steps. Also note that if I clicked else if, I could add additional branches inside here. So you can have lots of conditional branching inside of a step, and then you can have many different steps. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this branch right here and just leave this fairly simple. I'll go ahead and choose OK. And now my workflow is being saved back to SharePoint. So inside the site, one of the things that you'll see is it creates a directory called workflows, and inside there it created another subdirectory for the workflow that I just created. And inside here you can see for every workflow it creates a XOML file, and also it creates the initialization form, which has a .aspx extension. Okay, so now that we've created this, we can go ahead and see it in action. Now, with the workflow already created, and it's been associated with this particular document library, let's go ahead and put it into use. So I'm going to go to the Upload tab, and let's go ahead and upload some documents. So we'll upload this first document, and the first document I'll put in the category of marketing. Let's upload a second document. The second document we'll put in the category that we care about in this demo, which is going to be HR. Now, when I created the workflows, I could have configured them so they automatically launch whenever a particular document is uploaded or modified. I didn't do that. So these documents, to get the workflow starting, are going to have to be started manually. So to start them manually, I can come down here, for instance, to start this one manually. I'll drop down and I'll choose workflows. And I see all the different workflows that are associated. I see there's the review workflow that I created. So I'm going to go ahead and click this to start this workflow. But note that when you manually start a workflow, it's possible for them to prompt the user for information. And because I wanted to put notes in there, I'll just put something simple. Hi there. Now we'll go ahead and start the workflow. So now that we've started this particular workflow, let's go ahead and start the second workflow. We'll start this workflow, even though in our example it's not really going to do anything because we only care when the category is HR. But now we have two different workflows. If I look over here, I'll see the workflows are completed because all they were doing is sending out a simple email in this case right here. And the final thing that we'll do is we'll go and I have a icon here so I can start a remote desktop session for Brian. And inside of Brian's session right here, let's go ahead and open up Exchange. Open up Outlook. And we'll go and see that there was one particular email that he received, and you could see that we sent the email automatically. It said, please review Prop 102 in the proposals library, and you could see that whatever the user put in as far as the data that we prompted the user for with the workflow initialization page was scraped out by our workflow and parsed into the email that was sent out.